what's up everybody, and welcome back. Infamous here with battleofthebuilds.com, coming back with another video related to ESO for the Battlegrounds playstyle. If you're looking for Battleground builds, if you're interested in PvP, feel free to check out battleofthebuilds.com. It's a site dedicated to PvP, currently exclusively with the Elder Scrolls Online. I will be posting a little bit on Mordha and my build that I use as a crossbowman. Really enjoy that game. I'll leave a link to the video where I put a little video with the playtime that I did on a previous stream. But for this video, we're talking a little bit about the Sorcerer. People have been asking me what is it that I play for Magicka Sorcerer. I did post my spell sword for those who like some hybrid gameplay. I'll put a link in the description, as hybrid Sorcerer is very viable. This is a very strong, very mobile build. You can see we're running 5,500 spell damage and weapon damage. This is a fun build. I enjoy playing it. There's a lot of variety when it comes to ESO and build diversity, especially for no CP. Hybrids are very viable and very enjoyable to play. It gives you a lot of utility, of course, and of course damage, as we're able to take advantage of both Curse as well as Endless Fury. Basically, your entire back bar outside of your ultimate, and of course this ultimate is just to maintain the spell and weapon damage on both bars. But as you can see, basically 8 of my skills outside of the ultimate is a sorcerer ability. A lot of people feel that as a sorcerer you're relegated to just using weapon damage, but of course if you go a hybrid route for basically almost all of the classes, you'll be able to utilize both skills, both Magicka and stamina, and of course be able to maintain a good amount of spell and physical damage, as well as stamina. You can see my stamina here and my my Magicka. Of course there is a build also for those who like Templar. As you can see, I've got a really good amount of health, max Magicka, max stamina, as well as pretty good amount of spell damage. This is more of a tanky setup, played as more of like the archetype paladin. But for this particular build, people have been asking me what is it that I run on a Magicka Sorcerer, so that's what this build is dedicated to. For a Magicka Sorc, this is what I've ran ever since Runes of Mazatan came out. This build has not changed. This is my Magicka Sorc. My Magicka Sorc was originally a Breton. You can go, if we like Dark Elf, High Elf, even Khajiit is okay, and then of course Breton. We are a Sorcerer. I am utilizing the Atro. If you want to go a little more glassy, you can go with the Apprentice. For BGs, I kind of like to have high recovery. For this build, it is a stage 4 vamp. It's really dependent upon you. I like the extra recovery, and of course as you get a little bit lower, your shields get stronger because of the Vampire Undeath passive. You also gain a little bit more recovery to your Magicka and stamina, though you sacrifice a little bit of health recovery. All points into Magicka. In terms of the items, I was running a Kina and then anything in the had that would give max Magicka, but obviously in terms of just raw stats, Dama House is your best bet because it gives you both a lot of stamina and Magicka. Kina, of course, for the spell damage, and then I am running Heavy Julianos on the chest. Your chest should always be reinforced for the maximum amount of spell resistance. The extra resistance gives you both 1% more physical and spell resistance. It's basically your best bang for your buck. And of course you're going to gain a little bit of recovery because of the Constitution passive. So this is a 2 heavy, 5 light. You could go 5-1-1. It's entirely up to you. I just prefer the extra heavy armor coupled with the Constitution passive, and you get a little bit more HP, which is fine. So like I said, we're running 5 Julianos, of course, Impen on, like, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, 1 reinforced, and then I'm running 2 divines. I think on live I ran a little more glassier with more divines, but in terms of a balanced build, I would recommend going several pieces of Impen. Usually I want to stick around 1,000 is enough in no CP, because most people don't have really high crit. This build has high crit. So even if they are running full Impen, as you can see right here, spell critical is coming in at 47%, and that is in no CP. So like I said, 5 Julianos, and then we're coupling that with Amber Plasm. Amber Plasm is an amazing set. I think most people by now know Amber Plasm is probably your best in slot for both damage and recovery. And then of course I went all spell damage on the rings, arcane, and then of course sharpened on the front. Sharpened is better for straight raw damage. If you on the other hand are playing a build that has heals that are spell damage dependent, then you want to go with a Nirnhone. But Sorcerer gains the vast majority of its healing either as percent return, like you return, like for example Crystal Frags, whenever you hit somebody with a dark magic ability, you regen 10% of your HP because of blood magic. So that's not dependent on the amount of damage you do. It's just straight 5% return in PvP. Of course, it gets cut in half. In open world, overworld, it's 10%, but of course in PvP that would be 5% of your Magicka every time you hit somebody with a frag, or every time you hit somebody with a Daedric Mine, which is why I recommend using Daedric Mines as a really great source of damage as well as healing. So we have healing return from Crystal Frags, which is not spell damage dependent. Daedric Mines, obviously. Healing Ward, not really as much. You don't really need to go with Nirnhone to really gain the biggest benefit, as you'll still gain the heal because we're running 2 damage shields, and of course Power Surge. Power Surge is also not spell damage dependent. It returns a flat amount every time you crit, and of course we are running high criticals, so we have a high uptime on the amount of times that we'll receive healing from Power Surge. And Power Surge, of course, because we gain major sorcery, increasing your spell damage, and of course it reduces the cost of the ability, and every time we crit, every 1 second, it returns 2550. Of course that is cut in half in open world, so it's roughly a 1250 heal from here, and then basically 10% would be 2000, so 5% every time we hit somebody with a frag, we're going to heal for 1000. Of course, if someone were to step on all of our mines, that would return 5000 HP, of course frags, and then as well as whatever healing we get from Power Surge. Backbar ult is a flex. You can go with Light's Champion, or you can go with the other morph, or you can go with something entirely different. Of course, the abilities, we're using Force Pulse, Crystal Frags. You can see the tooltip on frags is coming in just shy of 11.7. Curse is 10,000. I'm using Empowered Ward for the reduced cost, as well as because you get an extra 10% recovery to you and your team. Again, I always believe in offering even a little bit of utility to your team, so this gives 10% recovery to you as well as to your entire team. Of course, we're running in a light for the extra Magicka, and as well as the recovery, and of course for the increased spell critical rating with Major Prophecy. Shooting Star, it's a flex spot. You can run whatever you want. If there are a lot of Night Blades, I typically like to go with Soul Assault. Yeah, Shatter Soul. The reason being is because even if the person kind of rolls back to their teammates, this offers really good damage for if whoever is around the target will take an additional roughly 13k extra damage. Of course, that's cut in half, so it's an extra 6.5k. I have had use this quite often. It does help keep Night Blades revealed, so that you can you know, crushing light attack, crushing shock into a curse, toss out a frag, and then immediately hit them with a Soul Assault. They may dodge the frags, but typically you're gonna put out enough damage with the Shatter Soul to basically kill them, and that's just because Night Blades are a pain in the ass to kill. It's entirely up to you. I particularly like to stick with Shooting Star. It's a really good ult. It does give you extra max Magicka, and of course it has a decent tooltip. Backbar, of course, we're using Healing Ward, like I said before, Daedric Mines. Streak basically is my only form of stun. I use it offensively as well as defensively, but mostly what I'll do is I'll drop Daedric Mines, streak through my target to get the stun, and then start DPSing and then streak right back through him, because Daedric Mines has a 2-second delay before it's armed. And so what I do is it typically people hesitate when you drop Daedric Mines. and of course it takes 2 seconds to aim basically to arm. So that's why I work it that way. I'll streak through them, stun them, start DPSing, and then streak back through them. I probably at that point taken a little bit of damage. I'll streak back to my mines, and a lot of times people will gap close to you, and then of course we'll get hit by the mines. And of course you can see the tooltip there on mines. It also does good damage, heals you for 5% of your HP, as well as rooting them for 2 seconds. Of course, boundless for the armor buff, and then on the back bar, yeah, we're using power surge. This is basically the build. You can see the health: 21, 33, 5k Magicka, 15k stam, just shy of 2k Magicka recovery, and of course 1k stam, coming in at just shy of 3500 spell damage with 47% critical. This is a little more on the glassy side. We have a really good spell pen. It's coming in at 7600. Our resistances are a little low, but again, this build is a little more on the glassy side. This is one of the reasons why I particularly don't play this build all that much, is because I feel that the tooltips on Sorcerer are entirely too high, especially on frags. Typically, you're not going to cast a frag unless it procs, and a procced frag in no CP on my build is coming in at probably around 13, 14k. That's a lot of damage, but even if cut in half, that's 7500, yes, before mitigation, but more than likely I'm going to get a crit, and that's going to be 1.5 times the damage, so that no CP crit is going to be coming in like around 11k. That's why Sorcerers hit so hard. And it's not just one ability that they have that hits that hard, it's two. Right, this bypasses roll dodge. I think you can block it, I forget. But of course it hits twice. So it offers a lot of reduction in terms of not having to recast it, and of course, you know, Force Pulse is coming in just shy of 7k per cast. It's a lot of damage, and between that you have also Daedric Minefield. It's a lot of damage that Sorcerer has. Even though I have a relatively smaller shield, I feel very comfortable. I feel particularly a little more tanky than I should on a glassy build with 16k physical resistance. If you were playing this build in like a stamina version of this, you get blown up instantly. But this is why Magicka Sorc overperforms, of course. You know, between streak, things like champion. You do have fairly good healing coming in, and then just the damage is just ridiculous. But I said I was going to reveal it. People have been asking me, so here it is. Excuse me, losing my voice there for a second. So this is basically the build. I'll post a little bit of gameplay. I particularly don't play Magicka Sorc all that much, and even this build I don't play with Endless. I find it to be a little overperforming. You can see the Endless tooltip there coming in. The initial hit at 3k, and then of course the Endless Fury hit coming in at just shy of 11k. It does a lot of damage. So it's like between most people who use like Endless and frags and Haunting Curse, it's like there's so much burst and just recovery for days, right? It's like I could understand if you could build this amount of damage, but then at the very least your recovery was pretty shit, because you're basically putting everything into damage. You're going in for that 1-2 punch and want to lay your opponent out. But it's like for Magicka Sorc to have this much amount of recovery, spell critical, and have this much damage, it is in dire need to be rebalanced. It's entirely too strong. That's why most people who stream, they either stream Sorcerer or they stream Nightblade, because those are the two culprits in terms of balance issues in the Elder Scrolls Online. I am all for much more balanced play, which is why typically I don't put out builds that are related to proc sets. I don't use skills that I feel overperform, as I'm more of a competitive player. I enjoy competitive play. So when I create a build, I always keep in mind where is the imbalance, how can I rebalance the build to make it viable, but not so broken that it just overperforms, where it's the build is what's carrying me, and basically the build is playing me, I'm not playing the build, or the character is playing me, I'm not playing the character. So whenever I make a build, I try to make it as viable as possible for BGs, but keep in mind things that are a little broken on the other end. Of course, for my hybrid, I do use it because, one, it is a hybrid, and two, because, see if you can take it, even the tooltips on my hybrid are pretty much the same. I have just shy of an 11k endless, and then of course my curse is equally at 10k, like having a hard time finding it right now. But in any event, it is posted on the website. I do have, as you can see, a wide variety of builds. Feel free to check me out on Twitch at Infamous NYC, and of course, feel free to utilize battleofthebuilds.com. It's dedicated to PvP, ESO currently, and of course, I will be expanding into other games that offer PvP and of course that offer PvP builds. Thank you very much, everybody who has followed. Feel free to like, follow, and comment. I really appreciate it. I try to get to everybody, answer everybody's questions. And of course, check me out on Twitch. I appreciate all the support. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and God bless.